And I love people. I love to see what people have done. So I love to see people's CVs. And so I saw the CV, and at the bottom was written, "Climb Mount Everest." So I called my HR guys and said, "I don't care what this person has done. Please just call the person and send the offer letter."
What do you think that these anti-vaxxers who are not taking vaccines? What do you think about them?
And then the last group of people, no matter how much evidence you provide, they will not agree that the vaccine is good. Among the many discoveries of mankind which have transformed human life, the vaccines have really transformed how long we can live.
So, welcome to VetCast, a podcast where we explore the diverse world of veterinary science and medicine. So, today we have Dr. Narendra Chirmule with us. He's an immunologist and a CEO and a co-founder of Symphony Biologics. And he's a really qualified person and a really interesting person that I have worked with and met a lot of times before. So, I'm really glad he's here with us. Hello, Naren Kaka.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, would you like to tell me something about yourself that we would like
Sure.
to share with our listeners?
Sure, sure. Theo, first of all, thank you for having me on this podcast. It's been exciting to talk about my experiences and how my experiences in the pharmaceutical sciences would help students in the veterinary school. If I can remember, this is probably the first time I'm speaking to somebody in the veterinary program. I've spoken to a lot of different medical schools and others, but veterinary program, it actually will make me think about the answers that I have to give. So it's exciting. So quickly, my background, as you mentioned, I'm an immunologist. I've been working in the area of drug development for several decades, and I like to do this exercise of sharing my experience in drug development, especially failures, things that have failed. And in fact, according in that line, I've got a TEDx talk on this topic. I've written a book, Good Genes Gone Bad, on this topic. And recently we published a book by Springer on the life cycle of drug development. So I'm excited to be part of this process. Arab.
That's really interesting. I heard you mention that you had spoken in a TEDx before. So how was that? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, so that was an interesting call that I got from, I guess, the JIPMER students in Pondicherry, and they asked me to speak on something, and at that time, and I continue to do that now, think about drug development and the failures in drug development. I think I did this TED talk, could be 10 years ago now, is it forces you to think very precisely on what subject you're going to do. I think they give you 12 minutes to speak on the topic, and in 12 minutes you have to convey a clear message. I think I recommend everybody do their own TED talk in their mirrors on whatever topic.
Speak
Hmm?
about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It allows you to think in a very focused manner.
And you spoke about textbook. Spoke about books that you have written, like the
Good.
life cycle of
Right,
drug
right. I'll
development
show you
and Good
that.
Genes Gone Bad.
Yeah,
So
this book, it's called the approved the life cycle of drug development, was just published this month by Springer. It's a huge book. It's 650 plus pages, written 17 chapters. There's a whole chapter on toxicology and a separate chapter on biomarkers, which your university could help. Um, but I think you and I have talked, and have you actually worked on several projects in the past, and I think for students in your and when I visited your university, the it is important for students to know the diversity of kind of jobs there are in the pharmaceutical industry, and we'll talk more about that.
for the book, what was your target audience like? Like who do you want to read your book?
So it is targeted to students who want to get into the pharmaceutical industry, so that you get an idea. It is written by professionals, people who've been in the industry for many, many years. And it is also for early professionals to understand, what are the kind of steps that are involved in that. Like, for example, in the toxicology group, it is written by uh, Padma Narayanan, and he's got several decades of experience in developing toxicology strategies for drug development. So he's written a beautiful chapter on toxicology in that book.
So, like, how many people and who did you have to collaborate with, and how long did you have to research for the book? Like, it's a really
Wow,
interesting
wow,
thing that you're writing a book for yourself, like your own book. That is a really huge
yeah.
thing. So, like, how did you get to work? Like, how much did you have to work for the for getting to this stage?
Yeah, good question. I started the process in about a year and a half ago when I had finished another project that I was working on, and it was then time for a new thing to do. And this is something that I've been thinking of for many years, to get a book together um, on drug development. So this is also a course that I teach. I teach at UPenn, I teach at IIT Mumbai and IIT Delhi, and this course is meant for um, students and early professionals, and I go through the entire process of drug development from discovery through toxicology, pharmacology, clinical trials, and there is no textbook like this that was there. And I thought a great opportunity to write something like this, and that's what the driver for getting it done, and the thought process. And then as first it took me 1 second to come out of this thought. First, I thought I'll write it all by myself, but no way I could be able to write every aspect of drug development. So that's why then I started reaching out to my friends who are experts in particular areas of drug development, and they wrote their chapters. And now I think it's much more robust.
So we've had meetings, like I had meetings with you earlier a little bit, and I
Yes,
remember where you had said that in the different fields, like subfields of the drug development, like for example, toxicology, pharmacology, clinical trials, the people working in those particular subfields don't know what is happening in the other one.
exactly.
So is what I remember you saying. So that
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
think it's a very big deal for one person to write a book. So you have to probably have a lot of collaborations with people in
Yeah, yeah. I think we
the
have
field.
50 plus authors in this. Yeah,
50 plus
yeah.
authors. Wow,
50 plus
that's
authors.
really
Yeah, yeah,
fascinating.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was the tough part, getting everybody to meet the timeline and finish it. Project management part of it. But everyone was amazing. Yeah.
So you have worked at Merck and Amgen, and now
Yeah.
you also teach at IIT
Hmm.
and UPenn
Hmm.
and stuff, and
Hmm.
you're also doing this work together. So how do
Yeah.
you manage to, how do you manage your time between everything? That must be a really, really, messed up schedule you have.
Yeah. So, one good thing after 2019 is when I sort of quote unquote retired out of my day job. Mm, I think I planned this for many years for that also, that I don't have to do anything on a regular basis. Like, I don't have to go to work in the morning at 9 o'clock, and that kind of stuff. I don't. So I'm in control of my own time, which is priceless, right? To be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So that was the one big feature. Then it took me a couple of years to figure out what I really wanted to do. Because when you're working in a company or when you're working for someone or somewhere, there is a structure to everything that you do. Afterward, the structure falls apart. Right? There's no systematic thing that you're doing. But then creating a structure took a little bit of time. And then, sort of long story short, about how I do what I do now is I use my calendar very effectively to put things that I want to do on the calendar, so I know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Um, I also like to do. I'm an early morning person, so I like to do more intellectually challenging things in the mornings. And then by the evening, when my energy has sort of drained, I'll do some things which are more routine and don't require me to think a lot, but but still are important to do. Um, like I like to do other things like music and art and all that. So I like to do those things in the evening because it sort of relaxes also. And so I do a lot of, that's how I try to do a lot of things. And the one thing, Arab, I can't do very well, which I'm trying to do, is doing nothing. You know, like I just can't get myself to just sit and relax. Meditation out of the question.
I think that's one quality that makes you an interesting person is not being able to do nothing. So you're continuously doing something. I want to do this, I want to do that. So you're doing something new in life continuously.
I, yeah, yeah. I know you and I have been on bicycle rides and all together, and you know how it is over there, right? You meet all these different kind of people, and it's so much fun. You just it's life is too interesting to be sitting and doing nothing. I think at this stage of my life.
So the reason I asked this question about the time management is since our audience is students and people
Yes.
who are pursuing like fields in the future, they need to learn how to manage their times because I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of people have issues in figuring out when should I do this, when should I do that, when do I complete my work, and how do
Yeah.
I incorporate my personal hobbies and do fun things together along with the work. So that is the main objective of me asking. So,
Yeah. Again, there are lots of books and papers and articles and blogs that you can read about time management. What I'll reiterate more precisely what I do is I use the time of the day to do the most effective things. So when I have the most energy, I'll do the most important things that I feel that day are important. And then as the day goes by and my energy level sort of drops, then I'll do something just to check a box. Okay, I've done this, I've done this. So pay bills and all, I'll do that in the night.
how was the student life like? Like, can you
Oh
describe
my
how what
God.
your educational journey was like? And at my age, what were you doing exactly? Did you ever think that you would be doing so many things when you grow up? Or
No
what was
way,
your
no way.
aspect of what was your perspective that you would be doing in your old age?
One thing was I was fortunate that in our house, in our family, everybody was sort of supportive of everything that I was doing. So whether I was doing my PhD, during my PhD, whether I was doing traveling, trekking, this and that, my very supportive family, and so that was very important. We don't realize it, how much our family supports us, even if we don't see them every day, right? You have that net behind you that that if I do anything crazy, my family is there to help me. So that family and friends, and friends, and so that is one thing that was really important and didn't pay attention. Personally, I'll tell you the truth, didn't pay attention to that. Should have paid more attention to the network that you have at that time, right? You take it for granted. Um, I think I was again fortunate to be in places where I met very, very interesting people. So I'll tell you something that I sort of retrospectively have learned in my. You asked about my school and college days. Mm, I was again fortunate to be able to meet some fantastic people early in my life. And this is something that I now tell people to do. Go and meet some really amazing people in your life early in your career. The reason I tell you is I'll tell you a short story for that. So when I did my high school in Lucknow, and when I was in Lucknow, I used to play badminton. And then when I played badminton, I used to just play whatever. No, I hadn't got any coaching training or anything, but I won the badminton tournament. Not only it was not just any badminton tournament. I used to go to Kendriya Vidyalaya, which is the central schools in India, and I won the gold medal in the national team. Right, so the highest pinnacle of the high school college badminton, and I never thought about it. And then I went to college. I went to college in Bombay, and then I never could really win. I played in my college, but then when I came to the university level, I could never win any matches. Right? I was not at that pinnacle. I played well, but not well enough to be really, really good. After many years, in fact, now when I reflect upon why that might have happened, there's another story that I have to tell you is that my elementary school was in Calcutta. My father was in the railway, so we traveled quite a bit. In Calcutta, when we were growing up as very, very young kids, the badminton courts in Calcutta were so good that the national and international tournaments used to be held every year in that railway club. So for first 7 years, till seventh class of my life, I was looking as watching international badminton level players play every year, right? So when I won my badminton tournament in high school, it was not because I could play well, because my brain knew how to play well. My brain was networked to play badminton well because I had learned it observed it in elementary school. But then the reason I didn't win in college is because in college you then need strength. Just brain is not good enough. So I think the story, the reason I tell you the story then sort of relates to the question that you asked me about what was my experience in college is I didn't do it consciously. I was very lucky that I went to Tata Hospital in Bombay to do my PhD there. Every day I met some amazing people, but I did it without knowing that I was meeting these people. I mean, there used to be Nobel laureates and all come and give talks in Tata Hospital, and I was watching them and seeing them. All that was being captured by my unconscious brain. Now I tell people, do it consciously. Go meet, and the fact that you're doing this podcast, you're going to meet a lot of interesting people. This is, networking your brain, whether you like it or not. So, I mean, I don't want to make light of the situation, but this experience, I think, I found for myself was I was very lucky to have these experiences.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you next is, can you share some insights on the importance of mentors? Like you gave an example of how you should meet really good people, like you met Nobel laureates and stuff. But did you have any mentors that really helped you on a personal level to get to where you are?
No, initially, but later on, yes. So during my college and maybe early postdoctoral fellowship days, I didn't even know that you needed a mentor. I mean, probably heard of the word mentor somewhere, but never knew that you really could use one. And again, over the years, since then, I've gone and reached out to people who I respect, talk to, and usually they are not. It's usually not one person for me now. For various things, I have various mentors. In fact, to turn the mentorship on its head, the high school group that we used to have during COVID, we used to have those calls. The mentorship calls. We used to have those calls. I also learned so much from all of you guys telling me some interesting things, right? So mentorship is always a two-way street, and that mentorship requires that interaction to happen. And once you get comfortable in interaction, then you're able to ask those sensitive questions, and the kind of questions that you have to ask a mentor also are important. And so there are roles and responsibilities, I think, for a mentor and mentee. For me, I think asking a mentor when you are in a crisis is not the best time. Or building a relationship with a mentor, or trying to find a mentor when you're already in a crisis is not a good thing. You should have a mentor when you're in peacetime, when nothing bad is happening to you.
And then they're always there when you're in crisis.
And when there's a crisis, you already have them.
And since we are speaking about crises, what are the kind of challenges that you faced in your younger life while getting to while building your career and while
Yeah.
getting to where you are? So, what
Yeah.
are the kind of challenges that you faced, and how did you get out of them? Did people help you out, and how?
Yeah. See, I think everybody has challenges at different stages of their lives, and different challenges, from scientific challenges to some money related challenges to people interaction challenges. You have all these challenges that you have in your lives. And I think one for me, like, every career I've had, let's say, 4 or 5 jobs over the last 40 years or so. Every 10 years or so, my career has changed a little bit. And it was a situation, a sort of bad situation sometimes, which forced me to look for something different. So when I look retrospectively, it looks like a nice, smooth transition from one to another and all that, right? But in the actual moment, a lot of things were happening at that time when I was transitioning. So, for example, when I was in Cornell University Medical College doing my postdoctoral fellowship, um, in one of the most prestigious universities in the world, I'd been there for close to 10 years, and all I could think of was, oh my God, my seniors have gone and they've got such fantastic positions in industry, and here I'm stuck doing my postdoctoral fellowship. Although the fellowship was a tremendous lab, it was a fantastic lab doing amazing amount of work, right? But
And
when you're in
a third person would have thought that you're doing such an interesting job, and I would love to be at that spot. And you are
exactly.
personally on a level that like, why am I doing this?
Exactly. So, the sort of the analogy, or the funny thing is that even rocket science can get boring at some point if you keep doing it all the time. But then later on, though that frustration, reflects on the kind of work, the quality of your work, which was being affected. And then at that, so it was a traumatic time, not trauma may be too tough, difficult a word to use, but a lot of things were happening at that time where I said, I really need to get out of this place or something like that, right? And when you start relaxing and not too worrying too much about what to find, I was trying to find these industry positions like crazy at that time. I could not. Nobody was even replying to me. But then, one day I decided just to go to Philadelphia to meet my friend and have lunch with him on a Sunday. And we were just casually sitting around in the cafeteria and nothing, with no particular agenda or, nothing. I had not gone there to look for a job or anything. And one of the professors from UPenn was also there, and he was having lunch, and he said, "Can I sit with you?" And he sat with us. And one thing led to another. He turned out to be the chairman of the Department of Medical Genetics. And he said, in the Department of Medical Genetics, we're looking for a person who can do human immunology. And I was doing that. And he said, we are looking for a person who was doing human immunology who has studied viruses. And I had done that. So just like that, I got this job at UPenn, right? Not, I mean, of course, there was a whole interview process and everything after that. But when you relax and you don't want something, then it comes to you. If you strive for it, never comes. A little like philosophical, a little bit.
It's so interesting, like how it's completely opposite. Like when you want something, you don't get it, and when you're like, I don't want it, and then it
Forget it.
just comes to you, like, yeah, I
I
want
mean,
you now.
it must have happened to you too, right? Like when you play the violin, I'm sure something like that happens. You want to play this
Yeah.
piece and it never comes. Once you sort of let go, then suddenly it'll come.
So now that I've come here to college, I've not got the opportunity to play in a lot of places because back at home it was like continuously here and there. I have shows, I have concerts,
Yeah.
and now the thing is like I'm here, and when I was there, I did not like get any kind of request for me to go and perform somewhere. It was me trying to get in. Can I try here? Can I try there? Now that I'm here, people are asking me, can you play here? Can you play there? So.
And now you don't have time.
Now I don't have time. Now I'm too far away.
It's always the irony of life. Yeah.
So you've been a really big man on soft skills of life, and
Yes.
you also have a broadcast channel of self-awareness musings that I follow
Yes.
that actually.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you what the importance of that you have felt in your own life.
Well, all through the challenges that you asked me earlier in my life that I've had, I think I didn't answer the question of how did you get out of it, and I think the lot of the things about how to get out of it is involves soft skills in the scientific field, especially. Maybe true in other fields also, for like finance or architecture and engineering. We are never taught soft skills growing up, like like how to make a decision, how to ask good questions, how to interact, how to communicate effectively, how to do public speaking, right? All of this we're never taught. We're just like thrown out there, and you figure out how you, and some people do well and some people don't. And so I've been really a big fan of talking specifically about how to do these things very systematically, and that's sort of how the importance of soft skill is concerned. Even from a job, like all of you will now be looking for jobs, you'll be looking for master's courses. Some of you will go into higher education. you are going to be going into interviews to get these positions. So what's to differentiate between you and somebody else and somebody else? Because all of you would have got really good grades in your school, you've done the same subjects, the science is the same. What else can you do? Right? Maybe somebody's done an internship, somebody's not, etc. Like those are like minor differences. But the ability to deal with difficult situations, the ability to, like I said, ask tough questions, right? Um, or the ability to, just communicate effectively is something that will stand out. I'll tell you a metaphor of this, um, which is and it's a true story also. I was when I was in a large company. I used to get these CVs of all these young candidates who used to apply for these positions. And I love people. I love to see what people have done. So I love to see people's CVs. And so I saw the CV, and at the bottom was written, "Climb Mount Everest." and uh, like a hobby, like what hobbies have you done? I've climbed Mount Everest. And other things were like masters in biotechnology, came first in this and that and the other, and then at the end was. So I called my HR guys and said, I don't. Almost I said, I don't care what this person has done. Please just call the person and send the offer letter. Don't even bother to interview. Because if you climb Mount Everest, then you can probably do anything in the world.
So
I'm
probably he
not
has all the confidence in the world now.
Exactly. So, I don't care what you've done. But you can learn anything. I can teach you anything. You can do whatever you want. The metaphor in that is not the literal Mount Everest. This person actually had climbed Mount Everest, but the metaphor is climb your Mount Everest. Do the best you can in any field, like the world's best that you can in any field. And that what because your brain is the same, whether your brain doesn't know when it's climbing Mount Everest, the network that is forming in your brain to climb Mount Everest is the same to do any other difficult thing, right? So those neurons are the same. So your brain can't tell the difference whether you're climbing Mount Everest or solving an extremely difficult mathematical problem.
You've worked a lot on vaccines and gene therapy and pathogenesis of different diseases and
Yes.
mainly viruses, I guess.
Yes.
So can you walk us through what that was like and where in which particular company did you do that and what exactly did you work on?
Yeah, so I worked in three major pharmaceutical companies. One at Merck in Philadelphia, Amgen in Thousand Oaks in California, and then Biocon at increasing level in responsibility. In the viruses, vaccines. I worked on many vaccines in Merck, and I really understood not only the development of vaccine as a research angle, like what the virus causes, how the virus infects particular cells, and how you get disease like HIV, HPV, other these kind of viruses. But also, what does it take to get a vaccine approved by the regulatory agency? So, what are the kind of studies you have to do in the clinical trial? What are the kind of toxicology studies that you have to do? Like, for example, in the reproductive toxicity, we don't imagine this, but HPV vaccine, which is being given to women and boys in the reproductive age, you have to do something called reproductive tox study. You will probably study this in the course of your veterinary program, where there are multiple layers of reproductive tox study. You give the drug, in this case the vaccine, to pregnant mothers, and then you have to look at the not only the toxicity in the mother but also in the pup. So this level of toxicity, I learned all of these things when I was doing drug development experiments in this, right? So this whole process of virology in basic immunology, or the basic viroimmunology that you study in academia, um, translates to when you start working in a company in a very different way. It's much more precise. In the industry, you have to be much more regulated. Everything has to be documented, and then you have to, it's obviously very reproducible, and then submitted to the regulators for approval. So slightly different ways of looking at basic research in academia versus industry.
actually worked a lot in these particular diseases that are
Yes.
related to human medicine. So,
Yes.
do you think there are any parallels? Are there any parallels that you have found between the veterinary field and this must be something you need to think about? But are there any parallels
Yes.
between the human medicine and veterinary field? And have you ever worked in, maybe even unknowingly, have you worked in collaboration with any vet that you know?
So, the main veterinary program, the veterinary scientists that I've worked with is in the companies related to toxicology. You met some of them in some of our calls. But I've never, and I won't say never, I don't think I've worked on developing a vaccine, let's say for an animal, for a dog, I don't think I've worked directly on that. But the biological principles as well as the regulatory processes that you need to do, I would imagine, are the same. Recently, mRNA vaccines has become a very big thing, right? Everybody talks about mRNA vaccines. So there are lots of mRNA vaccines being developed for animal programs.
Do you think us veterinarians have anything, have a career path on your side of studies and field, relating to immunology after the veterinary degree?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Uh, I actually just this should come out of my head. But I nowadays, since we have access to it, and this is something I'd love to hear what you're going to say. I asked ChatGPT this question, like, what are the kind of roles that right? No, and I don't use chat. I use chat gpt, but I'm not going to be 100% dependent on that. But I want to see whether it comes up with a reasonably good answers, and it came up with pretty good answers, right? So like, for example, in the drug development process, you have early development, mid stage development, and late stage development. In the early phase development, there you will have drugs. Let's say you're making a vaccine against HPV. You will have many different candidates which can be potential vaccines, and you'll have to look at which one of this ultimately becomes the final vaccine. So the kind of work the toxicology group will be doing is to taking multiple different vaccine candidates, putting them into animals, and determining by some prioritization schedule which one induces least amount of toxicity. So it's more research based in the earliest phases. In the middle phase of the drug development process, it's much more regulated, where there are rules and regulations of how you have to do these studies. The FDA and all the regulatory agencies have guidance documents on how to do these studies. So it is basically following the law or following the process of how it needs to be. That's a very rigid process. There, you need study directors, you need people who are overseeing preclinical studies, etc., and writing reports. And we'll come to the soft skill part in a minute. And then finally, when it is in the final stages, where you have to now interact with the regulators to convince the regulator or demonstrate to the regulators that all the work that was done was valid and appropriate to demonstrate the lack of toxicity to this drug, the kind of work that you need to do is different. So early, mid, and late stage development in toxicologies can look very different, right? In addition, like I mentioned, as the soft skills, you need to have writing skills, communication skills, project management skills, the ability to analyze data, the ability to work in cross-functional teams. Toxicology is not just toxicology standing by itself, right? You have pharmacology, you have clinical trials, you have process development, which is the manufacturing of the product. All of these are interacting with each other. So a lot of interaction will happen over a period of time. So many, many different kinds of roles and responsibilities for vets.
Since we're talking about all these, steps that you have to get through to get an approval of a vaccine, I remember when you had given a lecture in the college, you had told us about how even a small 0.001% error can uh, end up being, just not getting approval for a vaccine. So all that money that you've spent, like, thousands of crores of rupees or dollars, have just
Yeah,
gone to waste. So, like, and you also said that you have written a book on the failures of drug development. So can you
yes.
give a few examples of these failures that are, like, the most highlighted and most prominent to you, and which probably tell a story?
Yeah, yeah. So in the area of toxicology, there are a lot of things that have happened over the last several decades. So the regulations really are in the field come from things that have failed. Like, for example, you probably have heard of a thalidomide, where where this drug that was a very great painkiller ultimately causes teratoma in children, in the newborn children, and they're born with no extremities, no hands and no legs. This happened in the what I think 50s, 60s. And because this happened, then you have this reproductive toxicology regulation that has come up, right? Then there was this again old one where there was tampering of the packaging, where somebody had put cyanide into the Tylenol or paracetamol tablets, and then some kids got really sick. Then the regulation for to ensure that the tablet or the medicine should be tamper proof, those regulations came in. So everything negative that happens, new regulations come in. Personally, I have been, unfortunately or fortunately, involved with a lot of failures. One of the failure meaning things that happen, they happen in the course of drug development, but then you have to learn from them. One example is when we're using adenoviral vectors to treat for transducing genes. There was a patient who died due to inflammation, systemic inflammation, which is cytokine storm. So we know now in COVID we have cytokine storm, and all of those lessons that we've learned from that inflammatory processes about 2-3 decades ago have been very helpful in treating COVID, for example, today. Right. So all of these failures or things that go wrong, the solutions for that then become applications for future things that have come up. So a lot of examples I can tell you, but these are the few that crop up to my mind.
So you were speaking about how regulations came up because of
Yeah.
these failures. So
Yeah.
do you think the regulations right now, at the current level, are at a good, at a level that they would stop any, large scale issue from happening? Or do you think that the regulations still lack behind a little bit, that something could be improved upon yet?
Yeah, very deep question, and the uh, almost impossible for me to answer that question, because unless you see something in the future, I can't anticipate what things will happen. But I think for the most part, over the last 4 decades that I've been working in the area, I think there are lesser and lesser bad things that are happening, large bad things that are happening. I think if you want to consider bad things that are happening, bad meaning having a large impact on lots of people being affected, COVID was one, right? What could we have done with COVID? Nothing. I mean, the virus came, it infected a lot of people. There's a lot of debate about this or that and in that. But at the end of the day, we did find, we as in humanity did find a way to curb it through medication, with kind of all the things that we've learned over the years, making vaccines, etc., etc. So I would say every time a new regulation is made, something else, the possibility of something going wrong is stopped. I think the process, the formal process on how to do this is called risk assessment. So you can theoretically anticipate any drug, what are the kind of things that could go wrong, and then plan for, if it goes wrong, this is what I would do. So that process is called risk assessment or risk management.
So you have worked a lot on the COVID vaccines
Yeah.
and the development of the COVID vaccines. And what everyone, of course, knows is that a vaccine would actually ideally take, 5 to 10 to 15 years maybe to develop. But we had a vaccine in almost 2 years or
Yeah.
lesser than that at the time. So do you think that there were small regulations that might have been bypassed to, you know, on a large government scale also, they would be really willing to bypass a small regulation just to be able to produce a vaccine more quickly.
Yeah.
They probably think that it is an unnecessary step, but it might
Yeah.
be something that could.
Yeah. So, the short answer is yes, some shortcuts were taken. Like, for example, entire toxicology studies probably were not done for that particular vaccine. But the background information about that has been because of the urgency and the crisis situation that we were all in. Um, lot of collaboration happened. Like, for example, an example I'll tell you is the sequence of the virus was sequenced in January. and within months, maybe within weeks, that sequence was publicly available, which doesn't really happen in real time. Once that sequence is available, multiple companies around the world started, and academic labs started developing vaccines using that sequence, which happened in weeks, which otherwise would have taken years. Then the testing of those biological testing, which again, which would have taken a long time, would have happened in years. So every step, and the regulators, rather than being like these, what they normally do, which is, they are the checkpoint between the approver and the and what the market, what has to go into the market. Um, they actually collaborated with a lot of these pharmaceutical companies to help them with the regulations. Not that they were like it was bad, but it was the need of the hour. So, I mean, we've written a manuscript on this ourselves, and the awareness of vaccines in high schools and colleges, and it was quite an eye opener to know, that it, awareness, that whole COVID era enabled a much larger community in the world to learn about vaccines.
Like you said, we had written the manuscript, and our main topic of discussion was that how vaccine development and drug development should be taught at schools and at a younger
Exactly.
age to everybody, which currently
Exactly.
is not available to everyone. So could you
Yeah.
just describe how important it is for everyone to learn that?
As we had reviewed in that manuscript, I mean, even teachers are not completely aware of what it takes to develop a vaccine. How would it be possible? How would it be possible? I mean, when we talked about the book that I wrote recently, even within the pharmaceutical company, a person within the company may not know what the other parts of the company are doing. So it's a huge knowledge gap. But I think having bits and pieces of these topics to cover in a high school is important, given where we are in society today. Among the many discoveries of mankind which have transformed human life, from drinking water, clean drinking water, vaccines is up there. The vaccines have really transformed how long we can live, and we are not afraid of things that we used to be afraid of 100 years ago, right? So it is one of those critical things that has transformed society. So I think it's a good topic to teach in at the high school level, I think.
And another thing is that since there is a lot of lack of information and a lot of misinformation that's spreading about vaccines, there are a lot of people who refuse to take the vaccines, and it might turn out to be detrimental to the entire population as a whole. So, what do you personally think about the importance of vaccines, and what do you think that these anti-vaxxers who are not taking vaccines, what do you think about them?
I have been studying vaccines, so for me, vaccines is, and I study immunology. I know the mechanism of action, how these vaccines work. So I think that is, for me, it's an unequivocal important thing in society. Now, I think during COVID, I thought about this quite a bit, but if I may, I generally try to categorize everything into sort of three buckets. I would say, I would put myself in that bucket where I'm science driven, so called. I know the biology, I know the immunology, I know that the vaccines work. The evidence clearly states that the vaccine works. I also know that there are some side effects of the vaccine, and then some people have died because of the of vaccination or something like that. But I also know that the virus itself causes much more harm than if you were being vaccinated. Then there's a second group of people which I'll come to in a minute, which is sort of the intermediate group of people, and I'll explain this to you with an example. And then the last group of people are people who are, I don't know, they are fanatics, or they have been brainwashed, or I don't know, they are a different group of people who are very difficult for me to understand them, but I'm trying. They, no matter how much evidence you provide, they will not agree that the vaccine is good. So what is this middle group? Not listen to reason. So what is this middle group? This middle group is actually they have reason, scientific reason to believe that vaccines are not safe. Personal reasons. Example, I'll tell you quickly. Uh, a mother goes with her young baby into a doctor's office, and the doctor is about to give them the vaccine, the general measles, mumps, rubella kind of vaccine. The child is supposed to be vaccinated, and the doctor, just before the vaccination, takes the syringe. Let's say this is a syringe, and he loads up the syringe to give the vaccine to the child, to the child, and just prior to giving the vaccine to the child gets a seizure. A hypothetical situation, right? This 1-year-old child. If by chance that child got the seizure after the vaccine was given, right? No amount of data can prove to that mother that the vaccine does not cause seizure, right? So some people have this middle group of people do have, and I do believe that no drug is 100% safe. Similarly, vaccine will have some side effects. So that's how I would categorize these three groups of people and how to communicate with them.
It's quite a sad truth because most of the people, so the third group that you were explaining, they are just, they base their entire stories and their entire beliefs upon these stories of the second group that you were saying about, that
Yeah.
if the seizure happened after the vaccine, and once the mother is in a, mourning stage and people hear about it, all of those people are going to be like, no, I don't want to
Yes.
vaccinate. I don't want to
All her
vaccinate.
friends also are not going to
So
take
they
it,
go
right?
into that third category of people
Into that third
immediately.
category. Exactly.
Mhm.
And that's the way human brain works for us.
So, the reason why I wanted you on this on the podcast was that I first of all I know you quite well, so it is my first time
Yes.
speaking to someone, and we'd be more open to speak. But the second thing is that you had a lot of experience speaking, like public speaking and giving guest lectures, and you've given a lot of lectures at big universities like IIT, and you
Yeah.
were also here in our college, and
Yeah.
you've of course giving teaching at UPenn. So what is the experience like giving these lectures and giving so many lectures regularly? Like, what is your experience with that? Can you describe?
I was not a great public speaker to begin with, and not that I'm the world's best or anything right now, but I'm more comfortable having done that many, many times. So it comes with practice. It comes with a lot of practice. Um, I like to do these presentations, but I like to get them, like you gave me a lot of time to set this meeting up, right? So it allowed me to think about what I'm going to speak about today. These are not just random thoughts. You and I have talked about quite a bit. So when I do a presentation, every presentation for me is unique. I try not to copy what I do somewhere else. I pay attention to who the audience is, what do they want, what would they like to listen, um, and yeah, my friend Ravi Khare, he has a very good advice for presentations. He said, generally speaking, um, you should have only 8 slides, according to him. And you should only speak for like 15-20 minutes. That's the attention span of of an audience. And different audiences are different. So I like the kind of thing that he says, and short and sweet. No one ever says, "Oh, the lecture was too short." So so the shorter the more precise the lecture is or the seminar is, the more time. I like the interactions much more than the actual monologue.
There's a lot of new people you must be meeting also
Yeah,
giving
it's
these.
amazing. It's amazing.
So, can you, give a very brief list of where all you might have given guest lectures?
Yeah, I mean, some interesting places that you know what, I've given a lot of lectures in IITs and stuff like that. But I loved coming to your college, for example. It was such a unique experience. I think the students, first of all of you are wearing this white. That was so cool. And I feel like, I met your founders, and I think I met them. They're very committed. I felt like that. Those are very interesting people to come out and start a veterinary college in a farmland outside of Delhi with such a vision. I think it's you don't meet these people, you don't meet these kind of people every day, right? So that's the kind of things that I like to do is like go to these sort of remotish places or and meet the interesting people because um, not that IITs and UPenns are not good. Of course, they are great, but they're of a it's sort of you can always expect excellence in that space, right? But when you see excellence in these other spaces, it's really satisfying to see that everything's going well, in society.
Ask about like how your typical day looks like what
Yeah.
do you do in your entire day, and also along with that, what exactly is your role at your company that you have
Yeah.
co-founded?
That we started. Yeah, good. So my day, like I told you, is energy based now. But I get up early in the morning, and generally I do all my reading and writing related activities in the morning, and I write quite a bit, blogs, and I'm writing few papers together at some point. So my so reading and writing happens in the morning. Then I generally like to go to the gym or some physical activity, bicycle or something, because I feel like if you're physically fit, then you can do many more things. So, and especially as I'm getting older, I think that has become more and more important, right? So I think I pay a lot of attention to going to either swim or bicycle, go to the gym, some physical fitness thing I do. Not that I'm 100% fit or anything, but at least my attempt is constantly there. And then I love my afternoon nap, whether it is like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I have a yoga mat and a pillow in my office in Pune. So at 15 minutes, everybody knows when the door is closed, Naren is sleeping for 15 minutes. Yeah, I love that. And I feel very invigorated after that nap. And then in the evening, it's generally time with friends and family and hanging out. And so that's sort of a typical day, which I've been enjoying at least for the last 5, 6 years now. Yeah. And the other big thing that I need to mention is that from April to October, I live in Philadelphia. And from October to April, I live in India, so in Pune. So that's another interesting thing that's happening. I don't know how long that'll go on, but right now it's great.
So first, I'd like to ask about your role. What do you do at your
Oh,
company, and what
my
is your
role.
company based on?
Yeah, so Symphony Technologies is a company that my friend Ravi Khare from college days has been running for the last 35 years. And he specializes in data analytics and taking data and doing predictive work in the in the engineering field. So automobile companies, plastic molding companies, etc. So about 5, 6 years ago, when I left my corporate job, he and I had spoken about this, and I said to him that the methodology, the statistical and machine learning predictive technologies that you use can be applied to pharmaceutical manufacturing, just like they are for engineering. And that's what we do. We build software. We have consulting assignments on problem solving, especially from a regulatory perspective, for manufacturing related activities in pharmaceutical sciences. And I think I've seen my friends who are in the pharmaceutical industry when they talk to Ravi, who's an engineer, they have specifically told me it's very refreshing to see the other side, from the pharmaceutical business, the biology from an engineer's perspective, right? So he was very inspired, and as you know, he's gone and done his masters in from BITS Pilani in machine learning, and he keeps telling me about we've done a lot of interesting biology projects together, and so this space between engineering and biology is where we work on in our company. And my role is CEO of the company in the biologic side, and my role is really to think about the business, or like the business meaning how to interact with, how to get people to come and talk to us, and also the scientific regulatory discussions that we have. The actual software and the statistics and all that is done by the team.
It's really interesting how you are integrating the engineering side of things and the pharmaceutical side of things together. It's
Exactly. That's it's so I'm constantly learning, right? So much constantly more to learn.
And I don't know how many people are actually being able to do this, and how many people from the engineering side of things actually, interested in this field also.
In biology. That's why it's good for both of us. And you know both of us, so you know where we come from.
You earlier mentioned that you are here in India for some time and you're there in Philadelphia in the USA for half of the year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what is it like working in a different country than your home, and how when did you get to that going there and
Yeah.
working?
So I moved to India to take a role in as head of R&D in Biocon in India in 2015, and so I've been in India for more than close to 10 years now. And so what happens is it took a little bit of time to transition to work in the Indian environment, but it's been quite a long time now, almost 10 years. And a lot of people ask me this question: which one do you like? Do you like US or you like living in the US or India? And I don't think about it in that way. I think about when I'm here, I only think about here. When I'm there, I only think about there. Otherwise, I'll go crazy. But this Zoom call and these online calls have allowed me to keep interacting on both sides very easily, seamlessly almost.
How do you manage like the work that you have in India whilst you're in the US, or the work that you're doing in US whilst you're in India? Like, how do you manage the teaching and the handling of the company or both together?
Well, I think the teaching, that's one of the reasons I'm here in Philadelphia, is because when I do the teaching here, I'm physically here. When I'm doing the teaching there, I'm physically there. So I think the teaching is much more effective in person, I feel. Although Zoom calls can be done, but I think the in-person interaction is much more valuable. I think just online, you can have a few lectures online here and there, but I think the in-person is always better. I mean, coming to your college itself was so good, right? I mean, me being there versus all the Zoom calls we've had in the past. Um, yeah, and so this online system has really helped in communication across the oceans, made it much more easier.
Um, what is your opinion on like what students should pursue? Where should they pursue their further studies after their bachelor's or something? Is it better
Yeah.
to do it where they have done their bachelor's, like for example in India for me, or is it a better option to go abroad somewhere that probably has more exposure?
There's no one answer that I can give you. Everyone has their own pros and cons, but I would say do the research, right? So, for example, I tell students, find a college that you want to go to, find a college that you want to go to, and then you talk to the professors, talk to the students, alumni from that students, and find out why they like that college, like 10 reasons of why they like that college, right? And then you also ask them 10 things that they wish that their college had. What were the limiting things in that college? And don't bias yourself with one. Talk to look at 10 different colleges, look at the pros and cons of each one, and see what your requirements are, see what you require to do. Like, write down on a piece of paper, why do you want to do your master's, let's say in veterinary science? Because I want to do XYZ, or because I want to specialize in this subject, or I want to do this in the future, right? Write down the points that you feel that you're thinking about. Because of the reason I ask you to write, and everybody to write, and I also, and that's why I write, is a lot of the thought that you have is actually in your unconscious brain. And so by writing it down, you can now see what you're thinking. And this way, this allows you to analyze, collect the data first, right? Collect all the college information data first. Then you can collectively look and analyze and say, okay, no, this is better, this is better, this. So you can prioritize them in some way. Okay, based on this, I don't think I'm going to do this, but maybe these are the things I am going to do. So among the things I'm going to do, now you have a short list of things to do. Then you do more research on them and try to find out. And then you go to your final stages of making the decision. And you've done this decision exercise with me before. So I'm going to tell you the punchline of the decision making process. No matter what you decide is wrong. Not literally wrong, but you only because you have to make a decision. So if you decide, I like to say that if you decide that you want to work if you want to do your higher education in India, wrong decision. If you want to do it in Europe, wrong decision. Everything is wrong. The reason isn't metaphorically wrong. Yeah, because you will know only much later whether it is right or wrong, right? But you've done your homework. You've talked to people. You've got all the data from everybody else, and based on everything else, you're making the decision. Just make the decision and go for it, and then don't think about the other thing. And that's the easier. That's a process to make these decisions.
I have the last two questions that I would like to
Yes.
ask you is the first one is, are you completely satisfied with where you are, or would you like to have done things differently if you were given another chance?
You know, I've thought about this quite a bit, many times, and now with a lot of gray hair and all that stuff, I feel like life gives you a set of cards to play, right? And that's the only choice you have. That's the real only choice you have. Like sometimes I felt, oh, maybe I should have done my medicine, or something. Maybe I've done something else, or maybe I should have taken on music, or as a career. It's what if scenarios, right? There's no point in doing these what if scenarios because there's no data after that, because let's say I did do my medicine after my high school, right? I would have not been in the US then. I probably would have been in India, and then everything changes. So yeah, I don't think about too much about what if scenarios, from a thought perspective. Of course, your mind thinks about it all the time. You can't help it. But yeah. So what was the second question? One was the
Second question was that what is a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, and a piece of advice that you would give to our listeners who are students who are pursuing the field of medicine?
Well, I think and I like this exercise about telling advice to your younger self is you can give it based on now knowledge, right? So my one of the things that sort of boils up to me to as a message is, don't worry about the small stuff. The small stuff, that particular time seems really crisis, but all that small stuff is meaningless. It all sort of becomes a straight line at the end. You won't even remember all the small stuff that has been happening. But at that particular time, it's very difficult to think about it. But so the other question is, what is small and what is big? You don't even know that at that particular time. It's not an easy thing to do. But don't sweat over small trivial things that I wanted this. I wanted to buy a car and I didn't get the car, or immaterial. Like so that's to me don't sweat over the small things is a message that I keep giving myself. I wish I'd not worried about small things when I was growing up.
And is there anything you would like to tell someone else who's like you? If you are someone's mentor, would you like to give them a particular advice?
Well, I think each person requires to figure out what they want to do by themselves. And what I've figured out, I've not figured, but thought to myself, like, how now that I've been doing mentoring for several years, is rather than me telling you what to do, I help. I think what will be helpful is to clarify how to decide what you want to do through this process that I just told you, right? Think about what you want to do. It's plan A. Think of all the pros and cons for plan A. Then you think about what you want to do next, or in parallel, plan B. Then think of all the pros and cons you want to do to plan B. Once you collect all the data of everything that you want to do, then you sit down and prioritize and make the decision. And it's wrong.
It was really wonderful to have you on this conversation, and of course, if we wanted to, we could keep going and going on
I
and on and
know.
on
I know.
for 10 hours, 12 hours. So, uh, thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much,
It was
Arnav.
fabulous, and of course, we'd love to have you on again if you are interested.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, great. Thanks a lot again.